for auditioning for the Ontario Provincial Honor Band. This is a little tutorial video for the oboe auditions to help you try to maybe create a better audition video for a better chance of success. The first scale we'll be talking about is the C chromatic scale, and the tempo says 120 or faster. So what that means is that's a minimum speed we give you, so please do as fast as you can, but only as cleanly and as fast as you can. Nothing sounds worse than playing a scale, trying to rip a scale really fast, but it blipping and messing up all over the place. So please play it as evenly and as cleanly as you can. I'll play it once, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the scale. Okay, so that was quite a bit faster than half note equals 120, but please do it as comfortably as you can. The first note is we're starting on a low C. So what that means is you don't want to chip on the first note you play in an audition video, obviously. So you've really got to open your jaw, use a lot of air support to really let that C speak and not chip. Don't attack it with too harsh of a tongue, or that'll make the C harder to speak. So just make sure the reed is comfortable and your embouchure is open so you can really speak that low C. The first switch is actually a little difficult. C to C sharp, there's no way around it. You've really just got to use your pinky. Maybe set your C key on the first knuckle of your pinky, your outermost knuckle, and then use the tip of your pinky to press down the C sharp key, something like this. As you can see, my pinky isn't really moving much other than a little motion on the top joint of my pinky, and that will make that transition as clean as possible. The next one we should take note of is the break between C and C sharp in the middle of the octave, in the middle of the scale. And also try to make that, we don't want to hear the break. What you want to do with the break is to make it sound like every single other note on the scale. So what you want to do is to practice, just isolate those group of notes and practice that until you can get it as seamless as possible. So maybe repeat B, C, C sharp, C, B, and just repeating that 5-note pattern over and over again, something like this. So you can get it cleanly and you're not putting a blip in there like maybe I did for 1 or 2 of those. The third thing is you're going all the way up to high C, which can be a little out of tune for some oboes, so you've really got to support it and really open your ears out to make sure that it is a true octave with the first low C that you started with, because that's a very important thing in the scale, that your first note and your last note are perfectly in tune within the octave. Also, hold that C for a full duration, for a full 4 beats before coming back down, because the scale not only tests you on how evenly you can play your notes, but also how you can count. Lastly, the last thing is you can see we're ending on a whole note low C for the end of the scale. So don't drop off, try not to chip, use lots of air. It doesn't call for a decrescendo, so there's no need to come back down, but please make sure that you at least taper it off nicely and not give it too abrupt of an end. The next scale we'll be talking about is E flat major. As you can see that there is no articulations written other than on the top of the page where it says tongue. So there's lots of different ways of tonguing the scale. Obviously there's legato, there's more staccato, there's even accented. So one thing for scales is if it's not written on an audition page how you have to do it exactly, show a different variety of what you can do, because you're given 4 chances here with the E major, the arpeggio, the B flat major, and its arpeggio to show different kinds of tonguing that you can do, and maybe experiment with that and show the additional panel how versatile you are as a musician. So I'll play the E flat major once. It seems like the tempo is once again chord equals 120 or faster, so that's the minimum. Play as fast as you can evenly. Few things come to mind. E flat, first of all, is not the easiest of note to speak. It's still pretty low in the oboe. So once again, like the C we talked about in the chromatic scale, open up, use lots of air so you don't chip on the first note. The second note, the F, is a little tricky because there's multiple fingerings for F, as you guys know, and sometimes it's really hard to see which fingering is the best. For something like E flat major, I would recommend using the left F key if you have a more advanced oboe, a more professional model of an oboe. It's just on the side, it's right here, it's a longish key right above your B key, your left F key, and your A flat key. It's right here. And if you don't have that on your oboe, then there's really only one choice you can do, and that's to use a forked F. from your E flat, because you don't really want to slide on an oboe from a low E flat to an F. Rather, you just want to raise your middle finger up on your right hand to create that forked F. But what happens is a forked F sometimes is a little out of tune. So once again, as you guys know, a little trick for a forked F is if you hold down the E flat key or not, it makes a little difference in tuning. I'll play it once to let you guys hear the difference. Sorry. You can see it affects the tuning a little bit. So whatever fits your scale a bit better, please use a tuner, open up your ears, and create a judgment of which better suits you and the scale you're playing. Other than that, E flat major is not too hard of a scale. So please, one thing about scales is play it very smoothly, and please hold the last E flat for, once again, the full duration with a nice dark sound, and maybe add a little vibrato if you can. The next one is the E flat major arpeggio, which is one of the easier arpeggios on the oboe, so there should really be no problem. I'll play it through once. Hold the last dotted half note for the full duration, and make sure that your low E flat and your high E flat are exactly 1 octave apart. For this one, I am using both the right hand E flat key, but it's obviously your choice if you're more comfortable with the left, as long as it's even. The next one is B flat major, which is probably one of the first scales you started off in band. Very simple. This only calls for 1 octave, so I'll play it once and we'll talk a little bit about it. First thing I notice is that you're going a little bit high up on the register for an oboe, so make sure that B flat up top doesn't shoot too high tuning wise, and is perfectly, so basically it has to be perfectly in tune with the first B flat you start with. So sometimes it really helps maybe play this a little slower, just so you can hear the low B flat that you're setting and make sure the top one reaches its mark. Once again, the B flat calls for either a forked F or a left F, and the situation is the same. If you have a left F on your oboe, I strongly recommend using the left F because it's a lot more stable, the tuning's a lot better, and it's a darker note. But if you don't, use the left F off of the E flat and hold down the E flat key or let it go depending on the tuning of your oboe and yourself. And the last one is the B flat major arpeggio. Same thing pertains. The main thing I'd be focusing on is keeping the octaves true and in tune, and also your decision of the F. Because you're coming from a D, once again, you can't use a normal F. You either have to use a forked F or the left F. I would go for the left F once again, but it depends on your oboe. So the B flat major arpeggio. You can do, maybe one of these you could do a staccato, maybe for the B flat. But obviously it's your choice, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. Thank you very much, and we shall be moving on to the etudes. So this will be the Etude set B for the Ontario Provincial Honor Band Oboe editions. And we'll start with Etude number 1. Andante equals 60. This and molto espressivo all hints towards this is a very lyrical etude, so please play with a lot of breadth. Really sing out on your oboe and make sure tuning is very correct. And maybe for this one, your tonguing will be a lot more legato than it would be staccato. So just play through the beginning 4 bars. Something like that in the bar 6. First thing I see, it starts with an MF. So come in gracefully, but you don't have to come in too soft. Make yourself heard, make yourself known. The first thing is bar 2, the drop from D to A. Not too difficult, but once again, you are going to have to open your jaw and prepare for that A, or else it will crack, and you don't want something lyrical here to have a crack in the middle of your phrase. What I did, I broke up the phrase, so I did 2 bar phrases. But you don't want too much of a break, just a little lift, you don't need to breathe, and then into bar 3. The tonguing in bar 4, none of it is slurred, but also very connected, almost if there is a slur. And nice, gentle decrescendo into bar 5. Okay, so as we can see, bar 5 and 6 7 and 8, 9 and 10 are all the same motive, but they're just shifted by a few notes. The exact same motive in just a different key. So what you would want, make them different, because if you repeat the same musical gesture over and over again, just like if you're talking, you're not going to get a point across. If somebody tells you to do something and they just repeat it over and over again, you'll notice them getting more agitated, more angry because you're not doing it. Same thing in a musical gesture. You've got to change the way you're speaking your phrases so then the audience is kept captivated and interested. So ways you could do that, maybe play one louder than the other, maybe change the dynamics up a little bit within the phrase, put the stress on something else, or maybe a little bit of rubato in one of them, a little bit of slow down, a little bit of forward. It depends on you, as long as it's all in musical taste. So I'll just do something that I see fit, and I'll end the piece, starting on the pickup to the second beat in bar 5. Okay, so two things I noticed. First is with the last, in bar 10, we can see that the half note F sharp, I would recommend maybe a little bit softer than that one and pushing it towards the end of the phrase, because it is a transition into the last 2 bars. Watch your tunings, obviously, of all the high notes, as they all do require a little bit of a leap. So please open your ears, make sure those intervals are true. Watch for the accidentals, because there are some that you don't expect. And for bar 9, it does go all the way to a low C sharp. So please open up your jaw open up your embouchure, use lots of air to make sure that doesn't crack. The first etude is pretty simple. It just basically shows your musicality and how simple and gracefully you can play a piece. So please make sure rhythms, articulation, and tuning are all there, especially for such an easy etude like this one. Moving on to etude number 2. Allegro equals 176. Pretty fast. And there's not a lot of slurs. So you want a lighter tongue, and this is obviously, since it's fast tempo, it's more of a dance rather than a song. So make all your inflections up and carry the piece forward. So I will play the end of, or to the half note in bar 9, and that will be the first general few motives of the etude number 2. Cut. Let's do that again. This is etude number 2. Allegro equals 176 means it is a dance, or it's at least a faster technical etude. Not a lot of slurs. Make sure your articulations are very light and crisp, and all your inflections are up rather than down, as of a dance, because you don't really thud when a person like a ballerina is dancing. And likewise, your articulation shouldn't either. Because there's quite a bit of tonguing, especially from bar 6 all the way to bar 9. Make sure that it is very smooth. Don't go faster than you can play it. And I shall play up to bar 9. So something like that. What I noticed first of all is the D, G. That is sort of like a pickup, bum, ba, right, so, do. So you'll want to make the D inflection sort of like a lift, as a conductor would give you, pum, pa, da, 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 dum. And whenever, so in bars 1 and 2, we see that scale going down to the G, and ultimately the ending of the phrase all the way to the half note A in bar 5. So please give it direction, maybe a little bit of crescendo. Right, one long crescendo line all the way down there. And then pieces, a technical exercise like this could run on and on if you don't know where to break your phrases. The first place I would break my phrase is probably after the half note A in bar 5. If you need to, take a breath, but I don't think that's necessary. If it is, please do, but a quick one so you don't interrupt the time. And start again with a pickup into the high G in the same motive, pum, pa. Right, 6 to all the way to bar 9. It's just an extension of all 8th notes, so please play those as cleanly as you can, as even as you can, but not too legato. You want a little bit more lively gesture in that whole phrase. Moving on, this section from pickup to bar 10 all the way to bar 13, or the beginning of bar 14, is sort of a transition into a different feel in the piece. So pickup to bar 10. You see a sequence from bar 11 and bar 12. So just once again, it's all about direction, direction, direction for something this fast. So please just go forward and lead all the way to the half note D in bar 13. That staccato F quarter note in bar 13 is more of a pickup drop to end the phrase. You could start maybe the bar 10 a little bit more gracefully. Bum, da, 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 dum. Give yourself a little room to do that crescendo from bar 10 all the way to bar 13. So we can get the subito piano in bar 14 all the way to perhaps bar 17. Here, everything's more slurred. This is the first time we see such large slurs and longer note values. So this, to me, indicates something a little bit more lyrical, especially with the subito piano. So use your vibrato here, but don't slow down the tempo, because that is an easy danger, especially with pieces with more than one mood. That when you play more lyrically, you play softer, please, or you play slower. Please don't do that and keep the tempo going. So I'll play from bar 14 all the way to the end of the etude. Make use of the crescendo from 19 all the way to 22, so you can get to that nice forte again. Once you get to around that point, inflect up again, make it more of a dance, because I think the lyrical part sort of stops there after the slurs, especially once you get to 22, and keep the phrase going all the way to the end of the piece, the half note G, and keep that G a strong, full G with a vibrato, and just cut it off rather than a nice tapered end. Moving on to etude number 3 on set B. Allegro equals dotted quarter equals 56. It is an allegro, so it's not too slow. I would maybe pick this up a little bit. It's your choice, as long as you can play it comfortably. This is once again more dance-like rather than etude number 1, which is more song-like. If you quickly look over the piece, you can see that bars 1 to 4 is exactly the same as bars 6 to 9. So what that means, the only difference between the two is one is a mezzo forte, one is a piano. So you really want to show the difference in dynamic and control that you can put in your oboe. You can play equally as well, loud and strong as you can, soft and more nice and controlled, right? So I shall play up from the beginning all the way to bar 9. So there, fingering-wise, if you guys don't know, the high C sharp and high D, C sharp on your left hand is your second and third finger, your first finger on your right hand, and your C key, your C pinky key. So it'll be, and then your D, there's a little switch, it's half whole. So it's 1, 2, 3 on your left hand with the half hole, your second finger on your right hand, and once again, the C key, the C pinky key on your right hand. If you're not sure, fingering charts are easily available anywhere, so you can always look that up. One thing here, we do have staccatos on those notes, and even the rest, if we don't have staccato notes, they are lighter inflections, so inflect up, please. You can dig in a little bit of the slurs in bar 2 to make it more of a dance feel, and make that accent on the G known and present, because that's the only place where an accent is marked. Moving on to bar 10, this is where it gets a little bit different. I'll play the first few phrases, or first phrase in a bit once, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Once again, we see a lot of descending scales, and in a technical etude, to me, that shows direction. We're going to go all the way to the end point of the scale. Da 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 da. Little bit of crescendo will help. Lighter tongue, maybe. Dig into the slurs in the beginning. Maybe a little bit of vibrato to give it a little bit of a musicality gesture there. The trick, if you're playing something faster like this, the faster you have to tongue, the more air and the lighter your tongue should be. So maybe raise your tongue a little bit behind your mouth and just use the tip of your tongue to tongue the note rather than your whole tongue smacking against the reed. Neat little trick that you can see in bars 13 and 14 is we're always returning to the high staccato A and then continuing down a scale. If you take out the A, you basically get D, C sharp, B, A, and so that'll be a little so, fa, or do, ti, la, so. So that's like musical gesture, and the composer just interrupting it with little staccato A's. So what you want to do here, think of those slurs of the two notes, but in the back of your mind, just play those A's and place the staccato A's, but don't put too much emphasis on it because coming back down to those slurs will be quite difficult. Because it is easier to play high notes on an oboe rather than low notes. So concentrate on the lower line, and the upper line will just follow. Moving on from bar 14 to the end. A few points of interest here. We get that ascending scale, so once again, direction all the way through. And the same gesture, but this time with a B natural. So once again, don't focus on the B natural so much. Just as long as that's in tune and short, it's okay. Focus more on the slurred notes. And please count the ties, because this time we're not changing notes from bars 15 to 16. It is a D tied to a D. You don't rearticulate the D, but I would give it a little push from the, into the downbeat of the next bar, so you can count that easier, and it doesn't sound like a sort of weird blip to the audience. The rhythm to the last two bars of this etude is a little tricky. I would suggest clapping it or saying it a few times before you play it, just to get that under your head.